Hi, and welcome to Comfortable Lives, Season 3, Episode 7. This episode is being injected. Normally, following the season plan, something like this was going to be towards the end of the season, but considering current events and how things are progressing, I felt it's necessary to say these things now rather than later. Um, the last couple of episodes, we were talking about media manipulation and scapegoating and creating the other as uh, a tool for mass manipulation. You know, you want to be part of the in group. You don't want to be one of the outsiders, one of the others, because, well, the others are treated as less than human. um, as far as how this relates to the uh, COVID-19 novel coronavirus, well, how this relates is pretty straightforward. Um, the United States government paid trillions of dollars to pharmaceutical companies to fast track getting a vaccine in order to combat the virus. And in less than 8 months, we had a choice of like three or four, um, and they were fast tracked through FDA approval. So they technically have not yet passed FDA approval. They only have emergency approval due to the pandemic. Um, so what has happened that made this actually something that needed to be said now rather than later? Well, what had been said is um, general complaints by the federal government and parroted across social media as well as mainstream media about how the unvaccinated are causing more outbreaks. Um, this isn't actually supported by any type of science. This isn't actually supported by any type of statistical analysis or any honest statistical analysis. Um, Rates of infection between vaccinated and unvaccinated people, and intensity of infection between vaccinated and unvaccinated people have not really changed. There's been no real significant benefit to taking this vaccine. That pharmaceutical companies are not liable for any damages if you are harmed by said vaccine. And It has not truly been tested. We have years left of clinical trials that won't be completed until 2022, 2023, the earliest. So there are people who are hesitant to taking the vaccine. This would be understandably so if we were looking at this logically, which the federal government and media are banking on the American population not. Lumped in with these people who are hesitant to take the vaccine are people who cannot, um, whether it's by act of conscience and therefore a constitutionally respected right, the First Amendment, the freedom of conscience, or for medical reasons. There are people who are allergic to vaccine components, and therefore taking the vaccine will cause them harm rather than help them at all. Um, they're all being lumped together, all three of these groups of people. And um, it starts with banality, with insulting intelligence, with claiming that if you don't want to take this vaccine, if you're hesitant for taking this vaccine, you are classified A as a Republican, which doesn't make any sense. a Trump supporter, which may or may not be true, and it is wholly irrelevant. An anti-vaccine person, which isn't necessarily true or even mostly true for a large portion of the people that are hesitant to take the vaccine or cannot take the vaccine. And it's important to understand what's happening. The people are being led to dehumanize these people. And this has happened before. In the late 20s, early 30s Germany, the German government had dehumanized the Romani people, commonly at the time referred to as gypsies, homosexuals, and Jewish people. Demonized these people as parasites on society. During the Depression in Germany, these people were scapegoated as the reason why, that they were sapping the wealth of the German people, and that's why the German people were suffering, and the German people ate it up. It couldn't be their fault. It couldn't be the government's fault. It has to be these outsiders, these others, these people that were easily transferred to less than human. The United States has done this many times. It did it to Jewish people in the early 1900s. It did it to black people through almost all of its history. It did it to people of color from the Caribbean islands throughout most of history, at least up until the 70s as far as Puerto Rico is concerned, and later when we consider places like Haiti, Dominican Republic, Cuba, and other such places. Now, I make these parallels, and there are people who have this thought process that making this parallel is disrespectful to the people who suffered holocausts. And I do have a rebuttal for those people, and it comes in this video form. I'm not bothering to type this out anywhere. I find it's more disrespectful to the survivors and the those who passed on to human atrocity to not make the parallel of where those atrocities started. It wasn't like Monday everything was fine, and then Tuesday Jews were being carted off to Auschwitz to be experimented on by Mengele. This is not how this happens. It is a slow progression. It took years for the Jewish people in Germany to be put in a position where they were wholesale murdered. During that time, the German government tried to deport all of the Jews, send them to America, where America denied them and sent them back, as well as many other countries. There were, work camps. There were prison camps. It didn't come to the Holocaust in one day. There was a list of dehumanizing media about the Jews, about the Romani people, about homosexuals that happened over years before it got to the point where murdering them in camps was the solution. Everyone in Germany knew what the final solution was, because once that particular leader that will remain nameless was put into office, was elected into office, he had written a book explaining what he planned on doing. I mean, and it was required reading once he got into office. So it's not that the German people didn't know what he planned. They all knew from day one. But they let it happen because, well, it was easy to dehumanize an outgroup of people, people who aren't like the regular society. And that's what's happening now. People who are unvaccinated, whether they're unvaccinated by hesitancy, their own choice, their religious beliefs, or for medical reasons, are all being lumped up into one group of people. And that group of people is seen as less than human at this point. They're seen as stupid. They're seen as enemies of society. They're seen as irresponsible, a drain on society. There's memes going around about how people who are unvaccinated shouldn't be able to be a part of society. You know, you can't go to the stores and buy food. Happened in France. Can't work. Happening now in the United States. So you can't earn money in order to afford a place to live, which already is a tenuous situation with the United States after the 2020 year. So I don't make that comparison lightly. I don't compare the United States government to fascist regimes lightly, and I've been doing it for a very long time, because it has been that for a very long time. For people of a particular political persuasion to be crying Nazism over the last 4 years, telling me that it's somehow inappropriate for me to say that there are parallels between what is happening right now and what had happened in post-Weimar Republic Germany, is hypocritical at best and dangerous at worst. The fact is that this is what's happening in America right now. The President of the United States has openly offered violence to people who are resistant to his decrees. Everything that people had been afraid of happening over the last 4 years is now happening. And they're being silent because they're afraid. They were made to be afraid. They were bribed with fear. And now they're calling foul when someone points it out. How we move forward as a society, as human beings, separate and individual as we are, is at a very precarious point. We are at one of those particular points in history where things can go really, really, really bad, as we've seen in the past. As we've seen in the past at the hands of the United States government itself. Ask anybody who was involved in the Tuskegee experiments. They'll tell you how bad the government can be. So this has been Harry Felker with Comfortable Lies. And I hope this gives you something to think about.